Okay, we're recording. Better to be safe than sorry.
So you giving me any insight, or we're just winging it?
No, we're going straight. We're going ham, balls to the wall to say, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, welcome to the Jacob Bowlers podcast. And I'm here with an ultra special guest. I've been trying to track this man down for a couple of months now. Try to get him on the podcast. It is the most amazing Tristan Smith. Now, Tristan is the CEO of Mitchell Youth Leadership Forum. You'll see on these little hats. These are a couple of the forums I've been to. It's an incredible, amazing organization that runs this incredible youth forum every year. And Tristan is he's just an awesome leader and a great guy. But don't let me keep gassing him up. I'm gonna pass it over to you, Tristan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, mate. No, I'll lap it up. I'm happy to get going. Mate, best intro I've ever got. That's impressive.
Oh, done, man.
I expect that every time I walk into a room now.
I'll be honest, Tristan. I was going about 20% on that intro for you. I was gonna go another 80%, but yeah. But Tristan, my first question: what is wisdom to you?
Great question. I love how you just jump straight in, mate. There's no lead up. There's no smooth sailing. Nah. That's a really good one, man. In terms of wisdom, I think wisdom is such an interesting thing when you unpack it, because for me personally, I think it's, accumulation of knowledge, accumulation of skills and experience, but really over probably generally a prolonged time. Like, people think, when you think of wisdom, usually you think it's, quite often people think of older people because they think, they're wise, they're old and wise. But I think that's also quite general in that sense, because then there's sayings where, in terms of, people are wise beyond their years, so there's that kind of expectation that, wisdom is associated with, length of experience or knowledge or things. But probably to unpack it even more, I wouldn't say that it's just, it's not another word for knowledge. It's a combination of those things, but as well as, perspective as well, and being able to translate that across. Quite often when you talk about people being wise and having wisdom, it's how they then can share that back to others. Yeah.
So there's an element of accumulating experiences. It's not necessarily age or prolonged, but then there's also the aspect that it's kind of transferable across things, and there's a communication back to others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, because quite often when we think about wisdom, it's how people then are able to share that or pass that on to others. So that's then translating it, and they might be a keeper of the knowledge and skills, and they've built that over time, but being able to translate that across, I think that is part of that definition of being able to, not only hold it, but, be able to share that and influence others with it.
So then I'd ask, Tristan, with wisdom, say first we'll go to the first point. Say if someone is trying to gain or develop wisdom, how would they go about that? Maybe they're feeling a bit stuck, but they want to develop some wisdom, and what would you recommend?
I think it's an interesting one, because I suppose you could look at it from different lenses, whether it's more kind of just life experience, whether it's across things, or whether, it's wisdom in a particular kind of area or, a topic in that sense. So I think it probably depends on what the person's individual interest is, or what they want to, generate that wisdom. But I suppose strategies would be a combination of it. It could be, could be reading, or it could be listening to podcasts. It could be, watching TEDx talks. It could be having a mentor relationship with someone, being able to sit down and just have a conversation and to learn from them. So I think, there's so many different ways, and obviously, we learn very differently, and for some, they would get a lot out of just listening to an audio book or podcast or something, whereas others would really value watching interactions or seeing things in action and experience that. So I think, whether people, it's the environment, it's the experience, it's the exposure to just opportunities like that as well. So, combination.
So in that way, it's like everyone has their own little way that works best for them.
Yeah.
But what I'd ask you, Tristan, is, in your perspective, why would someone want to gain wisdom?
I suppose, I think it would obviously come down individual needs and preferences, and I suppose why, if they want to feel that they're able to be knowledgeable in something, or be able to be someone that people potentially turn to ask advice or seek things. So I think a lot would come down to it that people, in terms of their interests as well, as I kind of said before, if that's something they really are passionate about, passion I think translates across as well to then, them wanting to gather information and knowledge and that understanding and build that. So yeah, I think a lot of it will come down to different preferences for that individual, but if they really want to be someone that people potentially turn to or look to or ask advice or be a mentor to others, that might be an avenue that people kind of explore in that sense.
Yeah, so I think one of the cool things about like Mitchell Youth, when I think about it, is that kind of aspect of mentoring, and how like a wonderful experience like that, you come back feeling wiser, more uplifted, and those connections that were made. Can you describe like what is going on there? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like what's the secret sauce?
Mate, it's what's in the water, that we put at camp. But no, I think, I've heard you before, you've described, the forum as Disneyland, and that's something that I remember stuck out to me with one of the ways that you described it. And yeah, look, the forum is something else, and I think, as you said, in terms of like the mentor and the relationships and what you come out of it, there's so much to gain. And I suppose just for the benefit of, putting volunteers together with students, giving them that opportunity, a platform to have a conversation, have discussion, to hear others' experience, to have that opportunity to almost develop a mentor relationship just between those 2.5 days, and then, for some beyond that, having someone there that is a volunteer, giving up not only their time, their money, paying to be there, showing them that someone's investing into them, and that relationship side, really, I guess, gives the students something, they take so much, each individual takes something different out of it, but takes so much out of it, but particularly to have someone there giving up their own time to be there to support them and see potential in their leadership, I think is, absolutely incredible. And yeah, it's unlike anything else I think around. Like, it is very unique in that sense, as I'm sure you share your experience.
Definitely. I mean, like, you can count the hats on this table, and come back every time. I think it's just wonderful, because when I go to the forum, or when I see what happens to these students, it gives me an insight like on humans in general, in the sense that it's possible, with care, with a new perspective, it's possible for us to change. And if we do invest, and we do have that transformative experience, how that actually impacts everyone you bring it back to.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, it's not just, as you said, it's 2.5 days, the actual forum itself, but so much more beyond that, and what people take back, for a lot of our volunteers, some of them are obviously studying in uni, others are early into employment, others have been working for quite some time, but, what you can translate, take back to a corporate workplace or setting from that is transferable. What the students will take back to their schools or into the wider community, skills and things that they haven't ever developed, or, people having a conversation and getting them to think about different perspectives, or thinking about, values and relationships in a different way, where, it's not often that, you have that opportunity to sit down and just have those conversations, and to think about leadership, and to think about yourself and your style and working with others and things like that. It's a rare occurrence.
That's interesting, because like, I think one thing that's been a theme for me recently is that, like, as life gets busier, I've been taking my spare time, my free time for granted. And I realized that, like, we're either just sometimes just on autopilot mode, and sometimes we never get to discover deeper aspects of ourselves. And I think that's one of the most awesome things about the forum. You find out about yourself in it.
Absolutely.
But what I would ask you, Tristan, is what's your why with the forum?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jacob. And my why, I guess, to go back to give you the story, I began as a student, attended the forum. I was elected vice captain at the school, and leadership team was nominated to attend. It's a few years ago now. Probably won't tell you which year. No. But I went along and, I got a lot out of it personally as a student. I thought, it's just going to be a camp like Year 7 or Year 9 camp or something like that. Didn't know, no idea what I was actually going into. Kind of didn't, besides, students that had gone the year before, they kind of said, the best camp you go to, and, even still you're a bit sceptical and not quite sure, it's a camp. But I went, I really enjoyed it. I had fantastic leaders, and I was blown away that they were giving up 2.5 days of their time to be there for me and the 7 other students in the group. But that opportunity to be there, to think about, my leadership, what I could do back at my school, beyond in the community, was probably one of the first opportunities whilst I was in that prefect team to start thinking about that and think about what I wanted to leave as kind of my legacy at the school, how we work as a team back there, and also, to think about beyond, because obviously it's the last kind of 12 months of your schooling, but, I loved it. Obviously, group was mixed with other students from different schools and got to know them, and then, after school, really thought, with another mate, DJ, who's still involved with the forum, we were talking, we said, we've got to go back, and, we expressed interest to be a volunteer then, and went back as a small group leader then, and then from that, did that a couple of years, and then I did activities, and then jumped onto the committee after that, and stepped up. So yeah, it's probably been involved, including maybe my year as a student, maybe around 10 years now, off the top of my head. So
wow.
Yeah.
So like what I kind of take of that is that you had this beautiful transformational experience, and then you had an urge to go back and take action, and you followed through on that urge, and then it led to where we are now.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I thought, I had such an incredible experience as a student, and, people giving up their time for me, and how they created that incredible environment and atmosphere. And I thought, if I can do that and give back to, one other student, or, to a group of 8 students, in that volunteer capacity, I thought absolutely if I can create that and pass that on in that sense. But yeah, it's just led from, other opportunities from that. Not only, it's community, it's a friend group, surrounded by people like-minded, common interests, all there for the same purpose, and, focused on giving back to the community and developing the next generation. But yeah, from that, also so many other opportunities open up as well, just from the forum in that sense.
It's incredible how much it's the connections and the friends and that richness that is really a big part of it.
Absolutely,
massive thing.
It's really the fabric of it. Without the volunteers, we wouldn't have the forum. And so many of the volunteers have been through as students, and that's where they've been through, and each one of them wants to give that same experience, or if they haven't been to the forum, they've heard from someone else and wanted to get involved. And yeah, that's the forum. It's the people.
And I think I understood that, but then over time I've understood that and appreciated that even more deeply.
Yeah.
I think you're told a particular thing, but then it sinks in, and that
resonates.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've always said it's the people, it's the volunteers, and I guess I'd like to ask you, Tristan, around leadership and what is leadership, and why should we lead?
Great question. And I hope we can come back to you and ask you about why you got involved with the forum. Because I know, whilst it's your podcast, I think we've got to hear from the man himself. But yeah, leadership, I think, it's a term thrown around quite a lot, obviously. It's thrown around in the community, it's thrown around in politics, it's thrown around in, corporate work environments. I've had titles in jobs that have been called a leader, as opposed to being called a manager, which is quite interesting in itself there, because there's always that kind of conversation around leadership versus management and those aspects and things, and more generally you'll see positions in corporate are always called managers. But yeah, once I came across and I was in a position where it was called leader, I thought that's an interesting, not common. But I think leadership, is so important in all those settings, and obviously our target of the forum is students and developing that for both school and beyond. I guess it's the ability, to inspire, to lead, or I can't use that word, can I? to inspire, to motivate, to support, to guide people, to set the kind of navigate the path and to set that, to take the lead. And I've used the word again, just it's great, great definition. But yeah, there's so many components, obviously, looking at, how, to be a better leader, leading yourself or what motivates you or those things, but being able to be clear on that then allows others to jump on the journey, to be able to influence and to shape and change things, if you've got those qualities and you develop those, you've got to then bring supporters with you on that journey. You can't go alone on that. You've got to be able to build a team, and that's the big thing. Obviously, we talked about people just before. There's no leadership without people. It's impossible to be one person to have that impact. If you want to create that, broader, bigger impact, it's about then inspiring, guiding, supporting, developing others along the way to get to the end result or vision or the outcome that you want from that.
Yeah, that's quite profound, because I think what a lot of us see sometimes of leaders, and I think it's slowly being phased out, but what we still assume is the big one, the one at the front, the bravest, strongest, the best. But what I've seen as the truest and most influential leadership is actually the one that really invests and cares about those that they lead, and actually raises them up, inspires them, and brings them to their best capabilities. And I got to be honest, Tristan, I feel like that's kind of the space that you've always come from, and that I've really learnt. I originally thought it was always about being loud out the front, but I think I just have this really randomly turn the camera off. It's like I have this memory of Tristan one time at the end of one of the Mitchell youths, and everyone was kind of partying, saying goodbye, hello, and Tristan, you were just standing there looking out the window, just being super content, and you were just peaceful and quiet, and I just thought that was really impactful. And I think, Tristan, it's really cool because you've allowed by your example, you've shown me and other introverts or more just chill, reserved, how powerful that sort of leadership can be. And so that's influenced me on a different level. Wow. So I just thought I'd bring that out.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think over time you obviously reflect and look at your style and how you lead and things, and I think that is quite often what you see early on. And when you're young, you do see the person out the front, or you see the person with the name badge or with the title, that recognition, and some people, they aspire to that, and that's might motivate them, and that's great, but then there's others that that would be daunting. For me personally, never thought that I'd be one up the front speaking, and thought public speaking, I never want to do that. And for me, a big kind of transition and turning point was around that year 11 period, year 12, with these opportunities and things, and thrown into another thing at the time. It was a public speaking contest. Absolutely scared the crap out of me to have to do that, jump in, had to do a prepared speech, had to do 5-minute impromptu based off a question they give you in the room, and things like that. And for me, that was never something I expected I'd be comfortable in. It was a skill that obviously I slowly developed. Somehow managed to win that round and went on to the next thing, but won't go into that. But so must have pulled something out. But that's the thing too. Now, like different stages, you'll realise how sometimes you do need to lead by example, be up the front. Other times it is from leading from behind. It is stepping back. It might be allowing others to step up is actually stronger leadership than you being at the front and guiding all the time. It is about developing others, and you've got to, sometimes it's hard, you've got to recognise and pull back from things, because naturally then others will step up, or you can encourage others to do that. So yeah, and that's how obviously we want to build other people's leadership, capability. It can't just be based off, one or two individuals. You've got to build up people around you as well.
Wow, I think that's really exciting, because I think if you look at it, like if you look back when you've been when someone, or when I've been given an opportunity, or to step up and take initiative, and being given like a challenge, or it's been awesome, because I've felt more engaged, and I've turned from being a receiver, just a receiver, to a contributor, which I think is a different level of like enriching. I would ask you, Tristan, like there's a lot to be said about receiving a beautiful experience, but being the contributor, being someone who develops leadership in others, what does that do for someone? What does it do for you? Like what do you see of that?
Yeah. So I suppose, like, just to say back to what you were saying in terms of obviously, not being on the receiving end, being one to kind of facilitate that and step back from that lens. Is that kind of where you do that? Yeah. I suppose, I get so much fulfillment in what I get to do, through the forum and that, whilst I'm not being, the leader with the students anymore, and, that's a different role, but the fulfillment just to, pull back and sit back and to see what's at play, because you can see your people, you can see them stepping up, you can see them working, inspiring the students. So I think to me, I get fulfillment just seeing, the end result, the outcome, what's happening, or in the moment as well too, as opposed to always, it's great being the front line, it's great being receiver, it's great, and you have to, everyone's got to still develop, you've constantly got to be looking at, how you continue to grow. You wouldn't be still a leader if you're not willing to, be open to feedback, to reflect, to look at opportunities to develop yourself. And I suppose whilst, in the forum setting, I've stepped back to do, a lot of logistics and organisation, and to set kind of the expectations and vision and facilitate and organise in that sense. There's other avenues then that I have to go to and explore, to continually develop and to keep my leadership style developed and that.
Right. So like I guess you get a sense of fulfillment from that, but no matter what level you go to, you're always going to need nourishment or to be developed from something higher, or a greater opportunity, sort of thing.
Absolutely. You can't limit yourself and think that you know it all. You've been there, you've done that, because you absolutely don't. There's so much opportunity to continually grow and develop, and to keep refining your skills to be the best leader, or across, as I said, across content or subjects or knowledge, whatever it is that you want to keep building on. Reflect and learn and grow from that, whether it's within your career or whether it's in the community or wider.
Yeah.
I was going to say, going back to, for your experience as a student, or as a volunteer, what is it that, drew you to keep coming back?
Yeah, no, I think it's just a lot of fun. It's fun. But also, there's authenticity to a lot of the moments. Like whether it's a student sharing from the heart, or whether you're sharing from the heart to a student. There's parts of the day where everyone's kind of exhausted, and you've opened up, you've been through something, and it's those moments of those deep connections. I think it's that sense and quality of connection that, if I was to distill it down, and I think connection, it feels like it's just a one-off event, but it's not. I think connection is transformative. Every time you connect, or you meet, or you have a deep moment, it stays with you, and it moves you, and it changes your mind. So I think it's the connection which is the change. But honestly, it's just fun. Like, it's just so fun. And it's a beautiful experience. Like I said, it's Disneyland. So yeah.
Mate, I remember a moment from last year. I think it was 1 a.m. where you were talking about your podcast, and I think you tried to lock me down then and there. That we were going to have this conversation, and we have, and I do apologise, it's taken a while.
No, that's okay.
I remember, I think it was a 1 a.m. chat, sitting around the camp.
Yeah, it was, and
it was a little mock podcast we did on the
we
fly
did
there.
we did a mock podcast. There was a couple of the boys there.
Yeah.
I think Tom was there. I think as well, like there was one like where we had organised at the time, but you were coming back from an absurdly like large and a ridiculously big day, and you're like, I'll still do the podcast. It's like, Tristan, it's okay. Like you can just relax, man. Yeah, like I'm already, like already locked in, an hour.
Yeah, you probably don't want to do a podcast straight after, the camp. I think I was running 3.5 hours sleep each day there.
Oh man, that's nice. Like, oh my gosh, it's exhausting for a small group leader, but for the one running it all, could not believe. Which gets me curious, and I don't know what it is, but like, Tristan, how do you get so much done? Like, in your experience of everyday life, do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel like you're doing just the right amount, or what's the go? Like, what's life like in there?
What's life? Oh, that's a great question, Jacob. I'd say I'm pretty good at, like, I'd call that manage self and, thinking about kind of time management and priorities and that. My days are busy, like, my weeks are busy, but I kind of, try and stay organised on top of my schedule, allowing time for social. Obviously, work can consume people's days and, unfortunately I do have some flexibility. Being working from home, being in the office, those kind of things. So sometimes that allows you to obviously get a bit more done, or, how you use your time, I guess, whether it is driving to work, you might use that opportunity to wind down to or from work. So I guess my schedules vary. Obviously we've got the forum in there as well, organised throughout the year. I've always been quite a busy person, even going back to school. I think during kind of year 11, I was obviously full-time at school. I worked 2 jobs, and managed to stay on top of the studies and do that. So I worked in the pizza shop, I worked at real estate, and did that on the weekends and Friday nights or weeknights and things. So and then quite often, beyond school, I'd be working a couple of jobs at a time. So, sometimes you've got to reset and reprioritise and make sure that, you have the right balance. And, I don't mean balance is thrown around there. I think it's not always 50-50, like you can't look at it that way. But whatever balance or makeup you need, whether it's this much social, this much, time to yourself, or this much with, family or loved ones or friends or social, you've got to kind of prioritise and work out what works for you. And sometimes the balance will be skewed based on, just times of the year and things like that, but I guess you got to then, fix that and identify, obviously it might just be a peak time that you go through, but if obviously that's, it becomes the norm and your priorities are out, that, if you value, time with your family and you haven't caught up with them, then obviously things need to change, you need to look at that. But I think if you're passionate about what you're doing and it is priority to you and something that you value and care about, then you make time for it. And
so what I see in that is self-reflection, getting clear, and like what I obviously said, it's like managing of oneself. So it's almost like I don't know, like it's almost like you got a toddler in there, and with like life, you're just like trying to like redirect it, like keep it happy, sort of. No, I'm not saying you
I'd be a big toddler, mate. Come on,
It's hard a toddler. We're 2 babies here.
Big babies.
Big babies, man. We're all big babies. This is the first toddler I've interviewed on the show. That's crazy. Oh, yeah.
You're gone now, mate.
Yeah, okay. Time to manage the toddler. Oh, okay. We're back at it. Okay, well, no, we're chilling. I'm just trying to think of a question now. I'm just being
I've thrown you. Well, let me flip it on you, Maybe this is my podcast now. You're the guest. I'm going to interview you.
Go ahead.
So mate, tell me about how you balance things. Obviously, you got study, you got work. You've got community involvement, you got family, friends, social. What does that look like for you in the day of a life, Jacob?
Yeah, look, it's if I'm by myself, or if I'm not socializing, I realize if I'm not connecting with people or being engaged, I will get caught in my mind, and I'll jump ahead of myself like too much. But if I'm talking with people and I'm energized, and I keep pretty focused on what I have to do right now, I feel pretty good. Like I feel relaxed, and a lot of the time, like, obviously busy and peak periods, I've gotten much better with my busy periods and just managing it. But the thing for me is that I don't know. I always feel like I could be doing more. I've always got that sense I could be doing or should be doing more, and so like I'm kind of trying to figure out and reconcile with that. So I don't know. Like sometimes I could be doing more. And sometimes having that thought is just not a good thought to have. Maybe it's good to just focus and really enjoy here. So I don't know. I'm confused these days. I'm very confused, but I've got a lot of happy moments. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah. And how do you find with like your time management and stuff like that?
Yeah, like I think I always used to joke like I've got no sense of time. I'm a goofball. I'm not organized. I mean like. I think the legendary story of me is...
That's what I was probing, you could tell.
The legendary story of me...
I think the people want to hear it.
It was okay. So we had a forum. What day was the forum? Was it Thursday? It was supposed to be Thursday.
I'm glad you finally know after how many years Thursday is when we start, yes.
It was this forum, actually.
Yeah.
And it was Tom's birthday, and he was going to pick me up and take me to camp. Which I thought was on a Friday. And so I was off to uni, and I get a call on my phone from Tom, and he's saying to me like, "Oh, are you ready? Are you outside?" I'm just outside your house. And I'm laughing like, "Oh, Tom, you joker, like this is hilarious." Like, as it turns out, the forum actually was on Thursday. It's on Tom's birthday. Tom was missing out on a birthday lunch with his close friends to pick me up, which I'm not even there. I race home. I get ready and I come. So I goofed that up. That's me, man. I think that story has stuck with me. It's kind of my thing. But it's funny. It's funny. So like I'll own it. But I think in my latter years I'm sounding like a 60-year-old, but in my latter years I've slowly become a little bit better with time management. Like it's still a bit spooky and scary for me because I'm still kind of like, oh, there's a million things I could be doing, and like my mind's like racing. But the more I've calmed down and just relaxed my mind, the more I've been able to. Okay, so this is when I have this. I'm a big boy now. Time to put my big boy pants on, take off the nappies. Put them in the bin, so.
You're a toddler now.
I'm a toddler. This is a toddler thing, man. The toddler podcast. Find out which nappies suit you. Wow. Oh, wow. Oh, that's crazy.
So I wanted to check in. I, jumped into one of your podcasts before and heard that you'd set a goal and, it was potentially around World Youth Day.
Yeah.
And, in terms of fundraising, and I noticed you still got hair. So, the hair hasn't gone yet. So just give me an update how you're tracking that goal, mate.
Okay. So this is actually first publicly announced on Tom's podcast, which is really scary. And for 70 days after that, I promised him that I'd do it the next week. For 70 days after that, I had procrastinated doing that. So that was a journey. But after a conversation with a friend, a connection, just randomly, I decided to film and upload and announce that I was going to be raising money for my ticket to World Youth Day and sending it. And that if I hit my fundraising goal, which is $5,000, I'll be buzz cutting my hair. So I reluctantly put it out, and I was chugging away at and I hit which I'm super like happy and proud about and just really grateful for. I'm at $480, and then out of nowhere, like just a miracle donation came about, and it's boosted me up to $1,480.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible, mate.
So I once again, that whole aspect of courage and especially integrity, like staying true to yourself, putting myself out there, it led to a result of just this kind of miraculous thing happening. So it's moving along. I don't know what to do next. I think I've got a couple of things that I'm going to give a go just to kind of push it up. And I think it is on track to be buzzed. So we will see. And I think, I haven't really set a deadline yet, so no one really knows a deadline.
Yeah.
I think if I set a deadline and kind of hit it again,
Yeah.
And I realized as well is that when you're talking about messaging and marketing and getting something out there, it takes a couple of times for it to actually sink in. So, like originally, I was really afraid of posting anything, but now I realize that you post a couple of things so that people can actually know. And it's just exactly, plant the seed. But it's just incredible how generous and beautiful people are, and just how people are willing to give.
Absolutely.
So I've learned a lot already. So
and I think that's because you give. I think probably other people want to give to you in that sense. And recognizing what you contribute and support others with. So
thank you, Tristan, and that's really that's humbling and really nice, and thank you. And I think receiving all of this has only just motivated me to give back more, because I feel like if you receive, you can't help but want to,
Absolutely.
So it's been cool, but
Fantastic.
Bro, Tristan, when are you buzzing your?
Right, not desperate to fundraise at the moment, so we'll come back to that one.
No worries, all good. You're saving it for a rainy day.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm actually scared of cutting my hair.
Yeah. How long have you had that?
It's
hair,
I started full on growing it outside of high school. I've had little cuts here and there, but it's been for a couple of years, 3 years. I've had cuts and stuff, 4 years. So it's become a part of my identity.
Wow.
So that's gonna be interesting, but I don't know. I always knew that at one point I'll become attached to it, and then become attached to me, and I knew at that point if I got too much like that, it'd need to be buzzed. So
and you picked a charity as well, didn't you, for it to go to?
Yes, it is. I need to memorize. It's sustainable salons, actually.
Yeah.
Sustainable salons. So when it gets cut, it will then be passed on to sustainable salons and then turned into a wig for someone.
That's incredible. Yeah,
and I've been reflecting. I was reflecting on it, and it's actually beautiful because someone will be able to use it, and that will really have an impact on someone. So that's another cool thing, So
fantastic.
Yeah.
So when's the date? When's the shave, mate?
Oh. So as Tom comes on, commits me to cutting it.
This is the check-in, mate.
This is
keeping you accountable. I suppose you've got to have those people that check in on you and keep you accountable towards your goals. So much of it, you can do obviously with self-motivation, but what's better than having others around you to make sure you're on track?
That's true.
So when's the trip? The trip's later on in the year, isn't it?
The trip is halfway through the year. It's after semester 1 at uni. So the time to pay the bill is April 30th, I think. So what do we got? We got, what's March? It's April next month.
Yeah, mate.
It is. Okay, well, I think I might set it for April 30th, maybe. So I'm gonna. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna look back. The payment due date. That's when I'll set it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I raise $4,999, because that means I won't need to cut my hair. So that could work out really well for me. But if I get over, if I hit my goal and target, then I will happily. It will be happily buzzed off. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And how'd you get to choosing your hair? Was that your influence and someone else?
As in choosing my hair as the fundraising vehicle?
Yeah.
I just think it's it's just a hilarious thing to get. It's just a hilarious thing. Like I know there's probably deeper aspects, but like it's just a hilarious thing to get your long-haired mate to try cut his hair. You know what I mean? So like I really think that's one of the main reasons.
You probably need to create some packages like someone that you've probably got a mate that really wants to cut it. You know, set the benchmark that $200 they can cut it.
They can
be the person that cuts it. Maybe there's little things you can do like that.
I think I might reset a new package. I'm going to reward everyone who's already donated with whatever new packages I give. I'm gonna kind of rejig my offering up. Get really crafty with it. So
I like it, mate.
We'll see. That's actually good. This is giving me some inspiration. It's funny because this is literally this ended up being a real life demonstration of who Tristan is, man. He would just come, he would support you, help you, and now here we are. I'm taking action on my own things on Tristan's podcast episode.
Yeah, man.
That's a legit demonstration, man. That's legit. But yeah, Tristan, what's next for you, man?
What's next for me? Oh. Well, tomorrow is Wednesday, so I'll probably get up and go to work. I guess, I do set goals and things like that, but for a lot of things, I kind of have more of a direction or kind of guide on where I want to go or what I want to achieve, rather than, I know SMART goals are really good method to particularly focus and to look at those short to medium things, but I guess for more longer term things I kind of just have a direction of that. For me, I love what I'm doing at the moment in terms of work and social and things like that. I suppose career wise I want to keep growing. Like I work within education department and have been privileged to kind of go through working in the school side to then working in the corporate side and progress through that. Want to keep pursuing that career, love the impact that I can make in that kind of role, and whatever growth I can continue there is kind of that vision and what's next. But outside, what's next is, the forum in October, working towards that, immediate things, and just keep going with valuing my social, catch-ups, my relationships that I have with my family and friends, and no massive, big kind of things in the pipeline at the moment, but just, really enjoying life and where I'm at and where I've got to, and, we talked about reflection before, like, reflecting on if I thought I'd be where I am, with my career and other things like that at this stage of life, I wouldn't have ever expected that, so, things have changed quite rapidly over, a short period of time, and just really living in the moment and enjoying it.
Wow, that's incredible. That's it. It seems as though you've got your direction. Your path is unfolding, and you're just enjoying it along the way.
Absolutely, mate.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you think? Okay, so do you think this is interesting? Do you think the enjoyment of life and the path comes after the direction, or is the enjoyment is what creates?
Process.
Yeah,
I think combination. I think there's so much. I think some people sometimes can get too focused on the end result and forget the journey that you're going through for that. But yeah, I think you can absolutely get that enjoyment through both aspects by enjoying the process. Probably a lot of it is your mindset too, in that if you are just so focused on getting to this point, you can be blindsided in tunnel vision and forget what's around you kind of thing. So I'd say absolutely both. I guess when you get to that end goal though, sometimes that's what people have been working towards, and they get to that point and they've achieved it, and they might feel almost stuck there because they don't know what's next, or they might have been so driven to get to that point, and if they weren't enjoying it along the way too, potentially have some regret if they haven't reflected and thought back and enjoyed that, because it could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years for people depending on what they're working towards. But for me personally, I think you've just got to enjoy both elements of it, but really probably even more so the journey along the way, because that's going to be longer and last and have a bigger influence than potentially even that end result sometimes. If you think about anything, your pathway through university with study or, employment, there's so much that happens. It's not just you start the degree, you finish the degree, you get the piece of paper, and, if you unpack those years, that what led up to it, the late nights studying or submitting assignments at 11:59 or things like that. Sure, it's so good to walk out with, a degree at the end of it, but that's one fulfillment that you get, but there's so much that kind of built on that. I know that would probably resonate with you right now, thinking about your study, you're getting closer towards the end, and if you think about probably your journey along the way, it's probably been a bit of a roller coaster potentially, but you would have hopefully enjoyed that.
Yeah, I have. It has been a roller coaster. I have enjoyed it, and I think the thing is that no matter what happens, you have your experiences that you have, and I think if you reflect on them, it creates fruit to like enjoy your future experiences more, and your present experience now. I think turning 23, you start thinking about the end of your life and death.
Oh, come on, man! 23. Oh. You're an old toddler for 23.
Old toddler. But yeah, like it's tough. But anyway, that's crazy. But yeah, like I think you start I think adulthood hits you, and it hits you unexpected. It's like this is where I'm supposed to be an adult, or life is just so unexpected, and we really don't have control, but we can, embrace it and do the best with it, which I'm.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, it could be a challenge for some people, and I suppose, Ken, your perspective, like, a lot of people, when they reflect on their age or where they are, they might think that they should have reached certain milestones. They might have thought that they'd be working at this point and finish their degree, or they might have thought that they would have travelled the world. And we've obviously had the last few years quite disruptive, so that could have certainly impacted people's plans or vision or that. Do you personally find, do you sometimes compare to others around you and reflect and go, actually, like they're at that stage, should I be at that? Because I find a lot of people, it can be so difficult, when they're reflecting on their journey, and to not compare to others and to expect that they might have reached a certain thing. Do you find that at all? Or?
Oh, definitely. Like I find it, the moment, if you take comparison out of it, I'm happy and patient, and I'm good where I am.
Yeah.
But the moment you introduce that factor, it's just like, it's just like, and I think that's the big thing. Hey, comparison is the thief of what was it? Thief of joy or something like that.
Yeah, it can be a danger. It can be a real risk in that sense too.
Do you ever get caught in comparison game, or how do you stay out of it?
I think naturally when you do reflect, you are comparing, and as I said, whether it's to others around you or whether it's actually just to yourself from where you thought that you might be, you might have that comparison. For me, like I try not to get stuck on that. Because, we do have to acknowledge that everyone's got their own, journeys, pathways, obstacles along the way, and setbacks, and, life obviously throws curveballs as well, like, things that we don't expect. So, I think that's probably changed. I think I certainly did a lot more when I was, I'm going to say younger, 23. Going through school or early uni and things like that. But I think, you get to certain points, and you might still reflect, and that's not a bad thing, and to kind of benchmark yourself, but not getting caught up in the I should have got this, or I should have been like that, or comparing yourself to others that might be at a different stage of life, because there's no perfect pathway. There's no everyone's got their own unique journey and story, and that's what makes us individuals. We don't want to be the same.
No, like that's for certain. And I think the funny thing is that when I was in high school, and this is like me personally, I felt like I was top chief, like I was doing lots of big things, and in my small sample size, I was there, come into the real world, and then it's just like, there's no more comparison game anymore. It's a different environment. And for me, I had experience, I took this, I took that, I try to chase, you know, greatness. And I ended up like feeling quite humbled myself.
Yeah.
And so it was beautiful in the sense that I feel like I just became more relaxed, less expectation of myself, less expectation of others, more understanding of others, more understanding of myself. So in a lot of ways, having this experience where I was kind of like trying to find my way, not really getting anywhere, feeling a bit lazy, feeling a bit that, I feel like it's been valuable in a way because it's humbled me. And what it's allowed me to do is become really clear on what's important to me. Who am I really, minus comparison and stuff. So.
And did you, at that point where all that was happening, did you then make big kind of life changes or anything during those stages?
Definitely. Yeah, like I took like a semester off uni, switched courses, did a bunch of things, and like during all of that, I think for a while, like what I thought was high performance back in high school, I was actually just living up to expectations of myself and really living it. And obviously, like there were good qualities and good things there.
Yeah.
But when I reflect back on it, some of my most beautiful and joyous times were like on Mitchell Youth Camp, or doing like a musical or something.
Yeah.
when that would happen, that would be really authentic and clear to me. So it was like there were a bunch of times, and now outside of it all, it's like I'm getting more clear. And I think, you know, even if I take, you know, I think even we all take time always to get clearer and clearer. It doesn't matter, like wherever you're at, you know, and it's good, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Real vibes. Real the toddler baby vibes.
So what musicals, man? Are there any well-known musicals?
Yeah, High School Musical.
High School Musical.
I was in that.
Yeah.
And I was also in this like ancient history review show randomly at uni.
Why not?
Yeah, and highly recommend doing something completely out of your comfort zone because like it would bring me the most joy. It was awesome. So.
Were you Troy?
I was Troy in high school.
Yeah.
Which is the classic, you know. It's the classic.
You were
flex.
the lead.
I was the lead, yeah. What can I say?
We're going to have to bring out those vibes at the next four and put High School Musical on, and we can...
I don't know about that.
Yeah, about that.
Hold on, let's pause the podcast.
The viewers want it.
Tristan, what about yourself? Do you have any musical kind of inclinations?
Look, yes and no. Like, you think of, I guess generally you think about creativity and you think of it in terms of arts and things like that. To me, I didn't do music as electives or anything at school, but what I did, one stage when I was younger, I picked up drums for a bit. Did that. Probably annoyed the neighbours a bit, which was fantastic. In the parents' garage there. So, yeah, did that, and then ended up picking up a little bit of guitar, just kind of, beginner level. I've still got a guitar, but, rarely pick it up. But something I've been thinking of lately, like, picked it up for the first, time the other week after many months, and it's like, it's something like just to chip away at and to relearn little songs or little riffs and stuff. So, yeah, a little bit of guitar, but certainly no expert in that. Certainly not a musical guy. I haven't had my High School Musical moment.
Not yet. Not yet.
Next forum, you and me.
Yeah, 100%. You've heard it. I'm gonna quote that out of context. No, we're chilling. No, it's good. It's good, like to get out of that comfort zone and try some things. Very good.
Just to challenge yourself and
Yeah, I think challenging is just it's just powerful because you discover more, you grow more, and I think when you improve one area of your life, like it's almost like other areas follow.
Absolutely. And some people not only it might be the learning process of picking up an instrument, but that might also be a wellness aspect for them to wind down after a stressful day, or it could be almost mindless to them doing that whilst they're actually stimulating themselves by learning how to do something, but in a way just to sit in a quiet environment and do that. For some people that's really valuable and impacts all the other aspects of their life and well-being and things. So yeah, you never underestimate things like that, or learning new skills and
powerful. So Tristan, I have a question. Oh, you're like, this is my thing. Hey, I just realized. I don't know what that is.
The hands.
The hands, like the Wiggles hands. Wiggles. Say there's a student or a young person who's trying to find their way in life. They're not really sure what they want, or they're kind of got inklings towards things. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I suppose it's something that's common. Quite often, particularly that school age, it is that time where you're expected to make those big decisions and choose your career path potentially for the rest of your life and things like that. And it's hard to navigate. And personally, at that stage, I knew I kind of wanted to do something to do with business. That was as broad as I could get, and that was as specific as I could get in terms of I didn't know exactly what that meant. And I guess I didn't necessarily, I needed some direction, but I didn't need to know my final destination in that regard. But I guess how I would have got there and what I'd recommend is, having conversations with people. I think that's invaluable of, if there is someone that you trust, that there is someone that is like a mentor to you, or even just a friend that you can talk to like that. I think that in itself adds so much value, because quite often those people, in those, whether it is a friend or a mentor in those kind of roles and relationships that you have, quite often they'll recognise things that you may not even yourself. So I think they might identify skills and things that you might not see necessarily as a strength. So I think, that, any opportunity, we've obviously talked about the forum, and not everyone obviously gets those opportunities, but any opportunity or thing like that, I think obviously help people to navigate or find, direction or purpose, or kind of make those decisions. So I think opening up to those opportunities to people, if people are really driven to look and to research themselves, because that's the thing, knowledge is so powerful in that, and if you can't get it from someone else, it's looking at other ways to get that, and whether it is researching online or other forms, I think that is just they're small, very achievable strategies to be able to help someone. And there's no perfect recipe as well. Like people will use different things, or they have a light bulb moment and they go, yeah, that's really the direction. But even just opening yourself up to volunteering can give people so much opportunity to help discover who they are, what they enjoy, things like that. For me, my jobs, casual jobs and things like that, helped me understand more about what I was good at or what I might like doing and things. And then even in the volunteer settings as well, people discover and are able to tap into their strengths or learn about their areas to develop as well. So yeah, just putting yourself out there in whatever form that looks like, or doing research and homework in that sense to work out what your strengths are or what you might be interested in.
Yeah, so it's like a self-discovery sort of thing in many different ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think that's where even more degrees these days are putting in opportunities like work placement. Obviously, if you're going to be a teacher, there's always, pracs that you have to do as a teacher to develop. But a lot of other degrees now are putting in opportunities for, work placement components, volunteering. I think it's a really good opportunity for people to actually test and realise, is that actually what I want to do, as opposed to getting to the end of that degree and stepping, foot into a workplace and going, actually, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So I think, we've kind of, a lot of those things have changed over time. And I've heard stories of, people say studying teaching, doing the theory, enjoying it, and the minute then they stepped in the classroom and went, actually, this isn't what I want, and then changing that direction. And, people might change careers now these days, multiple times in different directions, as opposed to, I guess, traditionally where people would stick to a job or role for 30, 40 years back in the day. Certainly doesn't seem to be the case now with this generation, and that we're open to jumping and shifting and moving. And even for myself, I've stayed with the one employer, for X number of years, 8, 9 years, but I've jumped into spaces for, health and safety, through to training and development, then through into, performance, and then into, other areas and aspects, or, finance, different things, not specialising necessarily in one thing. But for me, that's all those skills actually build on and develop for the next role, which is quite fascinating. Whereas before, people probably would have thought, oh, you know, there's some environments you do have to be very specialised, and you do have to, you know, study and stick to that for a period of time to be able to be recognised as a professional in that aspect. But then there's other opportunities where you can kind of navigate and still explore and build on that, which is really cool.
I think interesting point you just brought up there about how you said you found that skills built upon and were used, like always kind of utilised. And I've heard this sort of thing before.
Yeah.
Tristan, have you found that your skills, and there was no skills that you've learnt that have been wasted? Like, have you felt that? Have you felt that throughout your time and experiences, that all of them have contributed to where you are now, and still do? Or?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly, it never would have matched, you know, where I am, as I said, in my job compared to where I started. I started, you know, in working in a school as a teacher's aide. But the skills that I developed from that, you know, working with some vulnerable students, working with students that might present challenging behaviours, you know, test you on the spot, you know, test everything from your resilience, you know, you developing strategies on how you work with other people, you know, with complex needs and things. That transfers to working with adults in corporate, you know, similar strategies that I would have developed from day one.
Wow.
You know, which is, you wouldn't kind of think that's the same thing, but it's people.
You
know?
hope it wouldn't be the same thing. I guess.
But that's the thing, like, so anything like that for me, it's you know, those skills are developed, that resilience, people working collaboratively, all those things are transferable regardless of, you know, potentially industries or roles, and so much of it you build and you learn from those. And, you know, it could be project skills that you develop, and then, you know, you're supporting a project and then you shift and then you get that opportunity to lead, but you've learnt through that process of then supporting along the way. And then there'll be times, you know, you could be leading a piece of work and it doesn't go to plan, but then you learn from that for the next one. And so many of those skills, I think, transfer, you know, across, and you take with you and just keep, you know, refining, really.
That reminds me, and it kind of brings to mind, there's this beautiful concept called anti-fragility. Yeah. And it's by this, like, I think he might be an economist, or he's just like a thinker, an essayist, Nicholas Nassim Taleb. I've definitely seen Nicholas Taleb, one of those, you know, right? And basically he says there's fragile systems where it's basically like, if it gets hit, it breaks, right? Like, it's like a bauble, even if it falls from the bottom, it could break. There's resilient systems where it's like you throw an orange at a wall, the skin will stay pretty good. I don't know, like, well, it was really a toddler kind of analogies here, right?
We got an orange, right?
Yeah, we're going to test this out. But it gets bruised on the inside. But then there's anti-fragile systems where the more that you're rough and tumble and challenge and you give it, actually stronger and more resilient and greater that it grows.
Yeah.
And it's like, the whole thing is that the point he makes is that we are anti-fragile systems, like humans, and that by exposing ourselves to challenge and to learning experiences, we grow stronger and grow better.
Yeah, wow.
So, you know.
And I absolutely can see that, and like, there are opportunities where I never thought at 15 I'd be, you know, leading a team, like, you know, have those opportunities and things like that where it challenges you and you haven't necessarily done anything like that before, and, you know, you're running a workplace and doing that, and it tests you, but, you know, you learn lessons there where then you take that on to, you know, the next role and the role after that. And, you know, I've jumped in environments and teams of, you know, a whole team of adults that would double my age, you know, coming in quite early into a career and being recognised in a leadership role. And you look at that and you go, all right, you know, what can I draw on? What skills do I have? What's transferable? And then you develop so much as well in that setting. But, you know, obviously you think, you know, sometimes you might question your ability to step into those roles and those positions and go, am I ready for this? But, you know, so much can prepare you for that, but then so much you can develop during that and along the way as well to, you know, get to that end result, or to be the best kind of leader or manager in those settings and things.
Wow, that's kind of inspiring, because I guess then my next question would be, if if we know that opportunities and experiences and like challenges makes us stronger, makes us learn, and makes us grow, how do we put ourselves in those situations, and how do you deal with that fear of, or if you do have it, the fear of failure, of messing up, of making a mistake, or making a fool of oneself, you know?
Yeah. There's probably a few parts to that, but I'll start off. I think feedback is something that, you know, we do underestimate, both giving and receiving. You know, I guess in positions like that, or where you're not sure whether you're meeting the expectations and that, I think, you know, developing that relationship, obviously, you know, we've talked about mentors before, but obviously, you know, you have a professional relationship with your line manager, having those conversations and discussions around, you know, how you're tracking, how you're going, are there things that, you know, you should improve or develop or refine. And I think quite often, you know, as I said, with your friends, they might recognise things that you don't. Same thing in this setting, that, you know, professionally, you might have a boss or a colleague that can provide you feedback or insights, and you go, actually, I didn't realise that that's the way I present, or that's the way, you know, that I come across or I speak, you know, during those settings. So getting that, being open to that, I think, is so important, because obviously if you're closed off and people feel like, you know, you're not going to be willing to receive, people aren't going to come forward with it. So, you know, there's probably a few avenues with that of, you know, being open and communicating that you'd like feedback, and being authentic about it. You know, you mentioned about authenticity before, you know, being authentic in the feedback that you give or the feedback that you receive. And, you know, I know quite often, sometimes people will do, you know, these 360 feedbacks where they get people around them, not only their boss, you know, someone that might be reporting to them, or a colleague they work alongside, to get kind of different perspectives as well, not just for how you might present, you know, up the chain, but also to people around you or alongside you on that journey too. So I think, yeah, feedback is something that can be, you know, invaluable, alongside then your own self-reflection, you know, can really help.
So the feedback and the self-reflection is what really powers turning an experience into growth and getting better. So, yeah, is that?
Yeah, and I was going to say then from that, that's where you identify, obviously, areas to improve. You then have a whole, you know, different avenues on how you develop and refine those. So it could be then, you know, by experience. It could be by getting exposure. It could be, you know, shadowing someone else, seeing how they do things or how they develop. Or it could be going to meetings of a different calibre or environment that you wouldn't normally be exposed to, just to get that. Or it could be the education side. It could be, you know, developing, you know, watching short clips or short videos or short PL things to really get you just to refine or think about things from a different lens as well. So, as I said before, people learn differently, and for some, they learn better by doing, some they learn better by, you know, listening, reading. We've got all those things, but yeah, I guess the opportunity for feedback or self-reflection just to help us to identify those areas. Then obviously, if you want to actually see a change in that and shift, you've got to apply and put the actions into place to do that.
That's powerful. I think it's so simple. Just simple feedback, self-reflection, having the awareness, and then applying. But I guess like it's sometimes I found myself with podcasting and different things, and like anything I'm stuck in that I'm not making progress, not taking action on. I've found that it's because I thought I'm the best, and I'm trying to maintain a quality, and it's like all this torture and fear of like, what will people think, what will people say. That's been the focus. But then what's allowed me to take action of things is that when I'm focused on it from that growth mindset, where it's like, hey, I could actually improve and learn and gain some real richness and depth out of this. I'm going to open myself up to it. I'm going to allow myself to make a few mistakes, let it be messy, and I'm going to, because I want the value of the learning, as opposed to the value of how someone perceives it. And that's a lot of pressure to put on someone, especially your loved ones who you know, going about living their lives, and it's like you want them to see you a particular way. I mean, that's a lot. And so I've kind of learned that focusing on that growth sense just allows for, I don't know, just makes it easier. What's your perspective on growth, sort of fixed mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. I think growth mindset's so important in that, and you've got to be prepared to encounter those failures, those obstacles, and things like that. You know, they're some of the times that you will learn so much more from than just getting it right all the time, or small improvements. There'll be times that you forget. But we're human. There'll be times that you make mistakes. It could be misinterpretation. It could be you've just dropped the ball and stuff. And did that the other week. I'm sure I was followed up on something by my boss or above, and where's this up to? Have you got it? Sorry, no, I don't have it. Got caught up with everything else, but I'll get to you today. And I suppose it's things like that a good reminder or opportunity for you to reset and go, okay, is it working the way I'm currently tracking or managing, or is it volume or workload or things like that you then need to address. But those failures or obstacles or things that roadblock or test you will really then help you. And sometimes if you make a particular mistake, you feel like you're never going to make that again. After that point, because it's ingrained in you, you've learned from that, and you're like, I'm never going to forget that the forum starts.
Yeah, I know. I was literally thinking of that.
And I'm going to turn up on time,
Yeah.
So.
That's so true. That is so true. I think if you're present and you really open yourself to it's funny because I feel like if you're open to feedback and open to your mistakes, you naturally don't make them again. You're just like, you're ready. You the improvement's already done if you just seen it completely for what it is. Because it's like you're going to take action on something if you've seen it, for what it is, Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Because I think sometimes I get caught up thinking that, growth is just a purely good and fun experience. But, I mean, if I think about it, sometimes when I've had the most growth is when it's been a lot of pressure, when it's been difficult things. And in and amongst that, like I've sat through the pain, I've gone through it, and I've gone to a new level, sort of thing. So,
and that's where you probably underestimated what you were capable of, and then at the end of the day you get to that point and you go, actually, I've tested myself, I've pushed myself, I was able to achieve that, and you might not think it's within your limits and that, but this could be a whole new level.
That's a really cool point because I think that it feels so real. When you don't feel like it's within you, we have this like sense of self. It's like, oh, this is what I'm capable of, right? And then it's like reality life comes along. You're put in a position and it just breaks it.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know. Like that's a really interesting kind of thing around that. So.
And I think so much. So often you might have a boss or something that recognises and sees that differently to how you do. Like you might have thought, oh, that wasn't a great effort, or could have done that better. But that might be because, as you said, with so much going on, you've got this noise, and it could be blocking you from actually realising what you've produced, or what that end result or outcome is, and how other people receive it. It may have actually met their expectations. It could have exceeded their expectations, but you're not only balancing your own kind of perspective on it, there's other people's perspectives on whether you've met the mark on those things or delivered on that like you said you would.
That's pretty powerful. What I'm just kind of getting right now, which is a kind of interesting thought that's come to mind, leadership and life and managing yourself and effectiveness, it all seems to be about continually getting back to clarity, getting clear. Like whether it's clear on your priorities, clear on where you're at, clear on who you are.
Yeah, I think clarity is so important, and there's another term, we get buzzwords and things obviously thrown around. One that's being used at the moment in my work setting is around discipline delivery, which links, I think, back to that clarity, and it's thinking about what is the result, what do you want from it. Quite often our biggest issues or that we encounter are all centered around communication or lack of communication or breakdown of communication, whereas that's also the strength. Having clarity in communication sometimes then leads to successful outcomes, projects, deliverables, things like that, successful teams. So much I think is fundamental around communication and that clarity piece of if you're communicating what your vision is to your people, to your team, if you're communicating what the expectations are, But that clarity, absolutely, I think it's underestimated.
That's quite a beautiful kind of like summation of problems, like a lack of communication or clarity. And it kind of, like, it's funny because it's almost like, I think part of communication is clear and communicating, giving it, but the other part is receiving it, you know. And I think it's interesting because it's almost like we've got this sense of self, we've got something inside us, and we're in a lot of ways trying to uncover and get clear communication of who we are, get clear on that, and in funny ways that might reflect into the outside world around how we communicate with others, which is, you know, always internal reflection and external, like, you know, always into looking. But Tristan, is there any question that you would have liked to be asked on the podcast that we haven't explored?
Not off the top of my head. You know, I wanted to give you questions, but I think I've been able to do that throughout.
Definitely.
I told you, I flipped it. It's my podcast.
You did.
You're just the guest, James.
This is the Tristan Smith podcast. Well, in that case, Tristan, are there any final words that you have for the audience, for the podcast, for our conversation?
Oh, look, firstly, I just want to obviously thank you, Jacob, for having me on. And obviously, you wrote me in and I said I was going to do it. And it took a little bit, but I'm here. But, you know, I think there's, you know, going back to obviously the start in terms of what you said around wisdom, I think, you know, there's so much wisdom out there. There's so much knowledge. There's so many experiences, opportunities for us all to learn and grow. And I think, you know, obviously through the podcast, what you're doing, you're getting different perspectives. And I think that it's not only going to help you, help, you know, the viewers hopefully, but, you know, that's what we should be doing organically, you know, throughout our day-to-day and having those conversations and reflecting and learning and growing. And, you know, I think the opportunity, as you said, to put yourself out there, to give back, you get so much more, as we said, you know, than just always receiving and that. But yeah, I think, thank you for creating this platform and for the opportunity.
No, honestly, my pleasure, Tristan, and thank you for being on the platform. I really appreciate it, man. And as always, just absolute pleasure, and thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Okay, I will shut off all the things